about meow?
One, two, three, hit man.
Right about now. Right about now. The Funk Soul Brother.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Right About Now podcast. I'm Jonathan Small. Happy holidays to you all. Okay, so pop quiz. What did Charles Dickens, Alice Walker, Edgar Allan Poe, Mark Twain, Patricia Highsmith, and Ernest Hemingway all have in common? Yes, they're writers. That is true. But they are also incredible cat lovers. The great Mark Twain once wrote, "When a man loves cats, I am his friend and comrade without further introduction." I could not agree with that quote more. Ernest Hemingway said, "A cat has absolute emotional honesty. Human beings, for one reason or another, may hide their feelings, but a cat does not." So what is the deal with cats and people? I sound like Jerry Seinfeld. So what's the deal with cats and people? I mean, let's think about it. We allow these little furry creatures to come into our homes. They sleep on our beds. They play with string. They go to the bathroom in these tiny little sandboxes that we set up for them. And we just don't ask any questions. We know so little about them. But my guest today is going to inform us about things. Her name is Meghan Herron, Dr. Meghan Herron, and she is the author of Decoding Your Cat. Dr. Herron is a veterinary behavior specialist at the Ohio State Veterinary Medical Center. She's a good person to talk about cats with. I have had cats my entire life. I am slightly obsessed with cats. I find them endlessly fascinating and amusing and just great fun. I have two cats right now, Seymour and Thatcher, who you will be hearing a lot more about in the podcast. But I had a lot of questions for Dr. Herron. I had to ask her why cats do things that they do. Like, what's the deal with rubbing and kneading and purring and meowing? And why are certain cats like so incredibly comfortable around humans while others are really skittish? And what do we do about those scaredy cats? Is cat Prozac an option? How about CBD? So, if you have questions about cats and you want to better understand your cat, or just cats in general, this is the podcast for you. So without further ado, I bring you Dr. Meghan Herron. So Dr. Meghan Herron, welcome.
Hey, pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
I am so excited to talk about my favorite subject, cats. And
That's great.
I'm a little bit of a crazy cat person. Not total crazy cat person, but I definitely have had cats my entire life and find them to be endlessly fascinating. I feel like the internet has just caught up with me. I've been fascinated with the weirdness and coolness and beautifulness of cats for a long time. And I wanted to have somebody on the podcast that really understands cats to help us understand them a little bit better, because they're strange creatures. Even though they've been around for a long time, we still don't totally understand them or their behavior.
That's true. We strangely haven't really changed them all that much, even over all these thousands of years of domestication, right?
Right. So I think you say in your book they've been around for almost the first kind of known record we have of domestic cats is like 9,000 years ago.
Yeah, 8,000 to 9,000 is our best guess, where you see hieroglyphics and some evidence that cats were living among people where there's an actual bond and relationship type of manner.
And they haven't always been pets necessarily. I mean, I guess they were pets and they've been worshipped, but for a long time they were just kind of roaming the farms as sort of like helping, farmers get rid of mice, right? They were
Absolutely. They were excellent exterminators. They didn't have to pay. Their payment was their catch, right?
Right. In your mind, when did we make this transition from them being sort of excellent exterminators to, living in our house, sleeping on our beds? My cat is right here under the drum set, just hanging out with us. When did that start?
I mean, I think that the jury is probably out. There's probably a lot of information missing in the past, between 8,000 years ago and 200 years ago. A lot we don't know. We just know that there are burial sites, ancient burial sites where there are cats buried with people in the way they're placed in some manner that suggests that they were more than just an exterminator for them, or more than just an idol that they worship, that there actually was a relationship there. And then I think if you look at least in the United States, I think cats were, in a lot of cases, an outdoor companion. So they were a pet, but not necessarily welcomed into our home, say, 200 years ago. But I feel over the last century, we've started to see cats and dogs really, but cats become more and more of a family member and coming actually into the home, and then not just in the home sometimes. So I think maybe starting with a little bit of time inside. When the weather's bad, we'll let you have some time inside, or maybe in the garage.
Yeah.
And then creeping into our homes. And then I think just the human benefits of having a feline companion, I think emotionally, socially, physically, right now we're seeing some beneficial health effects of having pets, cats in particular. That they're actually not only welcomed into our home, but we are keeping them solely in our home, in our bed, on our furniture, and really sharing our lives entirely with them.
So I have a million questions about cats, but I want to talk about you for a minute. So you are a veterinary behaviorist?
That's correct.
Tell me.
You got it.
I got it. Whew, I had practiced
So basically what that means is I'm a veterinarian. So got a DVM, go Bucks, the Ohio State University. And then I went on to do a residency, so where I specialized and did additional training in veterinary behavior. So my specialty includes all species, but my focus was on dogs and cats with various behavior problems. So their pet parents would come to see me for, issues like aggression. For cats, probably the number one reason is either peeing in the house where they're not supposed to, because who wants cat pee in their bed, right? It's awful. It's a terrible problem.
Yeah.
And it's the number one reason why cats lose their home. Or cats that are fighting with each other. So some sibling rivalry issues. Also can see cats with aggression problems towards either visitors or towards their people. We see a lot of petting related aggression. I'm sure if you've had cats all your lives, you've seen that before, where you're petting nice kitty and all of a sudden hiss, scratch, and bite.
Especially when you pet them on the belly. Yeah, they don't like that.
Belly and sometimes the back. Cats really, their preferred spot is probably head and neck. And the more they trust you and the more comfortable they are with touch, the further down they'll let you go.
In between the ears seems to be quite pleasant.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what got you into learning about their behavior? It's one thing to sort of medically understand cats, but you kind of took it to the next level. So what was it about, veterinary behaviorists, the study of veterinary behavior that fascinated you and got you into that line of work?
Yeah, well, I think most veterinary behaviorists probably have a story.
Yeah.
There was some pet that brought them down that road. But to be honest, my interest in behavior started with wild animal behavior. I thought I wanted to study animals in Africa and just look at their ethology and natural behaviors. And then really someone had introduced me to the concept of veterinary medicine to say, if you really want to be hands-on with animals, you should think about a DVM. And my mind was like, well, I don't know. Don't they just give shots to dogs and cats all day and they hate the vet?
Right.
I didn't know much about it. And so I started volunteering at veterinary clinics and just fell in love with medicine. So it's the science of it, the ability to help animals, and that, they don't have to hate you. You can make it a better experience for them, right? And a lot of that is by learning their behavior and learning how to interact with them so that it's a much more pleasant experience for them. They don't hate the vet. It doesn't have to be a terrible experience.
Right.
And then, of course, I adopted my own special needs dog who I went down all sorts of wrong paths with, and finally came to a veterinary behaviorist and discovered that my passion for, just behavior in general and animals and actual companion animal behavior was a thing. So I did everything I could to gain more information and eventually board certification.
So it's interesting. It's not psychology, it's behavior. Because I was going to ask you, and there is a difference, I think, in some ways. Because in some ways, we try to understand our cats and dogs like we would try to understand humans. But obviously, we're very different species and we're motivated by different things and we communicate in different ways. So how do we know that what you're telling us is true? We can't talk to a cat. So is it just observing their behavior that's kind of helped you come to all these conclusions and your peers come to all these conclusions about why they do what they do?
Sure. And I think it's an interesting point you make about psychology, because while yes, they are not fuzzy little humans, and they do think
feel like that
differently. They are
sometimes.
motivated differently. Their instincts are different. The actual psychology, the learning behind it is actually quite similar, if not identical. So learning theory about if you find what motivates an animal, then you can work with the same kind of reinforcement schedule. If it's really what happens, what is the behavior, and then what's the consequence of it, and that's how you learn, right? If you like the consequence of something you do, you're going to do it again. If you don't like the
Right.
consequence of something you do, you're not going to do it again. As well as sort of the emotional centers in our brains, as well as cats' brains. So what we call the limbic system. So that's that kind of emotional sort of primeval part of our brain that controls our fight or flight response. So essentially that's the hypothalamus, the pituitary gland, which communicates with the adrenal glands. And you tell me if I'm being too boring here.
No,
but
I like it.
I think it's
fascinated with it.
fascinating.
Yeah. Well, we have a similar system to cats,
Identical.
right?
It's identical. They have a
system.
hypothalamus, they have a pituitary gland, they have adrenal glands. And so they secrete cortisol, adrenaline, just like we do. The feedback systems are the same. So it's all highly preserved in mammals at all. And it's very preserved in the cat. So their response to something that frightens them, it's the same chemical reaction. The response to something that they find pleasant is the same. It's the same dopamine. So whether it's dopamine, whether it's norepinephrine, it's the same neurotransmitter. So it's really cool that they can have the same processes. So we can go based on the same learning theory, the principles of counter conditioning, desensitization, and then to really determine kind of what they're thinking or what they're saying. Now, clearly, I'm not an animal communicator. I do not profess to be, to know what they're thinking in sentences or what they're understanding. We know that they can make associations and they can learn words mean certain things. They can learn that certain cues predict, oh, the can opener, that means my canned food is coming.
Yeah.
I'm bolting to my people, right? They make those associations sometimes better than we do, because what the biggest difference in our brains is that prefrontal cortex. So that thinking part, that logic part, that reasoning part. Yes, they do have a cortex. They have a prefrontal cortex, but it's much more limited than what a human would have. And so we can spend all this time, just stuck in our heads, right? Perseverating and thinking and overthinking. And they think about it, they reason, but they don't have to spend too much time on it. But so it allows them to make simple associations much better, which is why your cat might be able to recognize when your car pulls up to a driveway as opposed to someone else's, right? They've made that simple connection. I don't know that I could do that with any of my friends or family because I got too much junk going on in my brain, right?
Right. In some ways, it's very Zen. They're very Buddhist. They're very in the moment. Like cats are completely in the moment. I often wonder, I mean, they have memory. They seem to have not as much memory as we do, but they definitely remember people.
Yes.
But oftentimes they seem to forget things more quickly.
I'm going to say it depends on what was the emotional connection to that memory, right? So the more pleasant an experience, the more they're going to remember it than something that was neutral. And then on the flip side, something that scares them. So it's kind of a survival mechanism for all mammals that if something scares you, you really remember that. So cats are pretty good at developing fear memories and remembering to avoid things that really scared them or that really hurt them. Which is why sometimes they don't like going to the vet and they remember the vet because unfortunately as veterinarians, sometimes what we do hurts them or scares them. Again, there's a lot we're doing as a profession to change that. So it's a more pleasant experience for them. But to really understand how they're interpreting, what we're doing and what their experience is, it's all about their body language. And the first chapter of our book is called The Language of Meow, where we really try to decode and kind of explain to the nuts and bolts of what is your cat telling you and how can you respond to it with your own body language so that they're not misinterpreting your intents. Because the way we communicate and the way we show our intentions can be very different from what a dog or a cat might interpret. And so while we think, oh, I'm putting my face in your face and I'm leaning right over you and I'm caressing you all over your body because my intentions are friendly, it may not be interpreted that way. But we talk about that tail. So one cool thing about domestic cats is that they have a tail up signal, that they are the only feline species on this earth that does this. So if you watch tigers, lions, cougars, they don't do this. And it seems to be something that is associated with people. So it's developed as they become domesticated with people. So when they greet you with their tail up, just straight up, and they walk towards you, that is a sign of friendliness. I want to be close to you. Come closer to me. And it's really cool that they're the only species that does that.
They have a lot of ways they communicate that I've noticed over the years. And, the rubbing thing, the classic, and you say in your book, it's because they're kind of it's the way they communicate with their pheromones and their skin and their glands, right? Is that what the rubbing is all about? It's getting that scent on you? Yeah.
Absolutely. So there are actually 4 different facial pheromones, feline facial pheromones. Say that really fast.
Yeah, right.
But specifically, the F4 fraction of the feline facial pheromone is sort of what they use to mark things in their environment as safe, so that when they encounter it later, they can say, oh, because pheromones stick around in the environment for quite a while. Like they're sticky, they stay there. And so the next time they encounter that, say, oh, I was here and I said this was all good.
Right.
I feel comfortable here. And so they feel that way. So if they are, it's really a compliment if your cat rubs its cheek on you.
Oh, yeah.
And they're leaving a message saying you're okay.
Oh,
but yeah, and they have all sorts of pheromones and all sorts of parts of their body.
Do they also have like warning pheromones? Like this is not a good.
Yes, absolutely, yes. And so that can be with in between their paw pads. So they do have pheromones between their pads, in their anal gland secretions, in their urine. So when cats are really stressed out, that's a top reason why they might spray urine around their environment. They're releasing not just urine, but there's also pheromones and other scents that signal danger. And this is important for us as veterinarians in the veterinary clinic, because if a cat has a really frightening experience, it's basically plastered the walls for all the other cats to read danger, danger, leave, run away. This is a bad place. Because pheromones are not just for themselves to recognize this was either a good place or a scary place. It's to communicate to other animals. So Dr. Kathy Halp, one of our grandmother veterinary behaviorists, and she says, pheromone communication is like the cat version of sending an email. Right? It's just, send that message. It stays there. It exists forever.
Open.
And it's just waiting.
Hopefully it doesn't go in your spam folder. I have one cat. So I have 2 different cats, which we'll talk about in a minute. But one is extremely affectionate, extrovert type of cat. The other was kind of more of an introvert. But the extrovert one is he licks me a lot more than any other cat that I've ever had. He's always licking my nose. He's really into licking. And I'm wondering.
Tongue feels good, doesn't it?
Oh, I love it. Although it's like that little sandpaper tongue. But what is that? Like, why is he licking me? It's the same thing with pheromone. Like, I've never had a cat lick me because it's very dog-like behavior that he's. But he's really into licking, and it feels like it's kisses. How old was he when you got him? Like a year old.
Oh, so an adult. Okay.
He was kind of an adult. I think he had lived with other dogs and other. He was like he was living in like a foster home with lots of other animals. He's the most extroverted cat I've ever had, the most sort of comfortable around humans that I've ever had. So everybody's always social. Like, oh, he's a dog. Yeah. He's that kind of a cat.
Dog cat.
A dog cat. So, but I'm curious, like he's very interesting to me. I feel like if he cloned Seymour, his name is, people would the people who have problems with cats would always be like, no, cats are awesome, because everybody's always converted once they meet Seymour, because he's like, you've never had a cat like this before. Right?
Yeah. No, because you're right. I think a lot of cats, it's all about socialization. So my guess is before you got Seymour, he was in a home where he was around people who treated him well. So he's clearly feeling very comfortable around people, because they need to learn that very young.
Yeah.
Early studies showed like between 2 and 7 weeks is when cats really had that window of learning that people and other things in their environment were okay. We're starting to see more of that window stretch to about 12 weeks of age. Yeah. So it's great. Somebody took care of him before.
Or maybe some other mommy kitty and daddy kitty were good to him. Now the other one.
Well, but he wouldn't equate that to people. So he needed to meet people and during that age, right? So like these feral cats that were never really around people before a year of age, they really struggle to feel safe around people. It takes years to get them to come around. So if he came to you that way, he had some people around him, which is a good thing.
That's great. Well,
thank you. And a lot of that is genetics too, just that bold, friendly personality too. But if we don't cultivate that with good socialization as a kitten, we may lose some of that gregariousness or that shyness, and fear may override that kind of need to be social. But as far as your question on licking, the reason I asked about age is because that's something cats who really like each other will do to each other. Yeah. Particularly on the face. So
he licks my other cat.
Your face.
Yeah.
Like they will, a cat that grooms another cat, that's a bond. Those cats like each other, right? So there's cats that tolerate each other, and they'll sit, you don't see any fighting, but they sit a couple feet apart. They don't sit and touch. You don't see them grooming the other. If one tries to lick the other, they just kind of walk off. They're not interested. Those cats are kind of just roommates. They tolerate each other. But the cats that really groom each other are really, really bonded. So they're more of a relationship status,
Oh, wow.
I guess you
so
could
maybe
say.
I'm like his
Yeah,
BFF.
and so I'm wondering, like, because that's the way cats communicate, sort of affection, and the more they rub on each other, the more they lick, they kind of create this kind of group scent with each other, so they're more and more familiar to each other. So I'm wondering if he had a lot of humans in his life, or a human at least, at a very young age, and he just kind of started sharing that affection with a person. As long as it's not excessive and he's not ingesting or eating other things he shouldn't.
Yeah.
Because certainly when we see cats do repetitive oral behavior, sometimes we worry that their tummy's not feeling well.
Oh.
But this sounds like more of a social behavior.
This is pretty lovey. And then the other cat is the opposite. I mean, he's so adorable. His name is Thatcher. And we got him as a kitten, and he's a Maine Coon. And he's like the opposite, where he's so skittish. And we're always like, you've known us your whole life. How can you be so scared of us? Like, this is the only reality you've ever known, basically. I mean, obviously, he knew another reality before we got him. We probably got him when he was about 8 weeks old. And, he is just very, very tense and nervous. And he comes around and he loves my kids, and he'll come and snuggle on their bed. But it's always like on his terms. And if too fast motions send him like off the beaten path, and he just hides a lot. And it's sad because we're so loving to him, and I wish I could figure out, we've tried giving him CBD. We've put pheromones in the air so that, he can relax with the smell of pheromones. There's those things you can order on Amazon. I mean, what should we do about this skittish kitty? I mean, I know it's hard to know without you coming here and seeing his environment, but what's your Well,
I'm sure you saw the chapter on the scaredy cat. That's
I did.
helpful.
I read the scaredy cat chapter.
Good. And I know that talks a lot about, getting outdoor cats, but the living with multiples, the chapter 4, there's that chapter with the mother and daughter kitten that get adopted together, and how over time, going slowly, not forcing any interactions, Sharon got both of those cats to come around. But as I said before, so 2 to 7 weeks of age is the time where cats have that most crucial social window. And most of us don't get our cats that young. So we're counting on whoever had the cat that had the litter, or wherever this cat was, to have some sort of social interaction with people. But there's also a possibility that either genetically or something, event that happened in the prenatal environment, either if mom was malnourished or mom was stressed out for some reason, even with the best of socializations, it's the same with dogs and cats. Some of them just have a tendency to be less trusting, more reactive, more wary of their environment, and more sensitive to, there could be noises outside your home that, he just can't tolerate. So he hides more, that we take for granted. Toilet flushes. Oh, can't handle that. It's too scary of a sound. I'm just going to retreat for an hour. It sounds a little more sensitive than some others, but genetics play a pretty strong role. So they've done a number of studies in handling of kittens. So, all right, if we pet them, we cuddle them for, 15 minutes a day or 30 minutes a day when they're really young, does this make them more social and more friendly with people later? And what they found was that it did to some extent, but by 1 year of age, when they looked across the board, the cats that had those fearful tendencies tended to still have those fearful tendencies. And yes, they could still be social. It sounds like Thatcher
he
has
comes
the ability
around
to be social with you, but he tends to, his MO is I retreat first and ask questions later. And if it's safe enough to come out, I will.
So there's nothing we can really do. He kind of is who he is.
Oh, sure. He is who he is. So accepting that is one thing. He's not going to ever be a Seymour, but I think going slowly, and there's lots of trust building you can do. Clicker training is a really fun thing you can do.
What's
with
clicker
cats.
training?
Often people think of that as a dog thing. It's basically a form of learning and training where you use a clicker. So if you go to clickertraining.com, Karen Pryor's got some great resources there where it talks to you about a little clicker, just click, click, makes a little sound. Now you want to make sure he's not afraid of it. And in which case you can switch to something like even just like the click of a pen, something really light. And basically what we do is we pair that little sound with a delicious treat. Now with cats, your challenge is going to be what motivates Thatcher. What does he love? Like, does he love little bits of tuna? Does he little bits of Pound's treat? Like, is there a food that he goes crazy for?
Yeah,
So you have
Seymour
to figure
does.
that out
Seymour
first.
likes that cat yogurt, but Thatcher's much more finicky. Everything about Thatcher is a little bit more difficult,
Yep. So you got to experiment
Find that.
a little bit and go into the people foods. So bonita flakes sometimes
Yeah,
are
he
really
likes
palatable
those.
to cats.
Yeah. Okay.
And then you got to think about, I maybe need to do my training session before breakfast while he's super hungry and motivated. And we basically associate that little click sound with a treat. And then what we do is once they learn, they hear that click and you see their ears perk up and they get excited. My guess is Seymour would be all over this. Like you could train him to jump through hoops and all sorts of fun things. And,
We should train
you just say, you lure them into a sit position, or you wave a little toy and you get them to bat at it, and you click the moment they're doing the behavior you want them to do. And that tells their brain, that was it. And it reinforces that behavior. So they're likely to do it again. And then you just repeat. And eventually they start doing it automatically. And you can put a word to it like sit or high five. You can teach cats. There's stuff all over YouTube. Just go, put in a cat clicker training.
Oh my God,
really
I'm
cool
excited.
Stuff. So I think people forget that cats actually have great
They can
brains.
be trained.
They are motivated to learn. You just got to find their currency and their timing.
Yeah. What's your stance on whether cats feel love, like the way we feel love? Because, I've read that cats don't really love the way that we humans think about love. It's more like, you're pleasing me. I like this person. They are pleasing me, but it's not necessarily like, oh, I love this person. But everybody who's had an animal, a cat or a dog or whatever, they definitely feel this animal really loves me. Oh my God. And you feel so much love. And I don't know how much I'm projecting onto the cat and thinking that he's projecting it to me back. But what's your take on that? I mean, after being around animals for so long.
Again, if you look at the biochemistry of love, so the hormones behind that, dopamine, oxytocin in particular,
they have
the same
them
in cats that it is in people. Yeah. And so I think when you look at those body language cues of just absolute bliss and comfort of my eyes are half open, I'm purring, I'm rubbing my face on you, I'm wanting to stay close to you and share that personal space, my guess is there's a lot of dopamine and a lot of oxytocin flowing through that brain. And so to me, if not the biochemistry of love, what else? Why not have that feeling? So I believe that they feel love.
Oh,
now,
I love that.
Whether they perseverate on it and linger on it the way we do with our, bigger prefrontal cortexes remains to be seen. But I would say that feeling, that chemical feeling, that fuzzy feeling is all about the hormones and neurotransmitters in our brain. So they share the same ones.
Let's talk about purring, because it's such an unusual thing. And you put in your book, you said that purring is a request for comforting, which I had never read before. And I think that's actually a really good way to put it, because people get confused that sometimes cats purr when they are at the vet, which is weird. Like Seymour purrs at the vet, but I mean, Seymour's always
Although
purring.
I believe Seymour probably
He actually likes it. Yeah. But I've heard that some cats do purr when they are scared, but mainly we just know that cats purring when they seem very content. But it seems like, I don't know, like a request, like I'll go up to Seymour while he's asleep and start petting him, and then all of a sudden the engine will start, the purring engine, and it's like, it just seems like he's like, I am so happy. It's a very calming sound. But what's your take on purring? Like, people don't totally understand it, right?
Right. We don't totally understand it, but it does appear to be in that context of, I want to be comforted. And it could be that I'm feeling so comfortable and I want this to continue, which it sounds like for cats who are in that state of bliss and wanting to be closer to you. It's the way to know the difference of, I'm seeking comfort because I'm scared right now, or I'm seeking comfort because I'm so happy with what's going on and I want it to continue. Is to look at the rest of their body language. So a cat at the veterinarian who isn't Seymour, because I have a feeling he just likes everybody.
Yeah, he does. You've had these kind of cats.
Say who doesn't love the vet, who feels scared there, but is purring. We feel like it's a mixed signal. But look at the rest of the body. So we'll look at their pupil size. So yes, their pupils are a different shape than ours, but they're going to respond to light the way ours does. So if it's a brightly lit room and their pupils are huge and you just see these big round black eyes, that tells me that there's some fight or flight going on. That's anxious. Adrenaline, that they're feeling afraid. If you look at their ears are not upright. They're turning to the side or maybe even going back in the head. The tail is starting to flick back and forth, or it's starting to puff up. They're doing what we call meatloaf position, where they're like, you could put their whole body in a meatloaf because they're so crouched down that they're really just trying to avoid what's happening. And they're kind of maybe, crouching their head down, or maybe they're darting their eyes because they're looking for an escape as well. But those are all signals that a cat's feeling uncomfortable. And you're also going to see their respiratory rate is increasing. And if you feel them, their heart rate is actually quite elevated. So pairing purring with all of those other signals tells me I'm seeking comfort because I'm very scared right now. Whereas pairing purring with rubbing cheek on you and having this relaxed sort of legs strewn out to the side, exposing my belly, having my tail just relaxed. Those are signs. That's a happy cat with pupils that are not dilated, ears kind of relaxed or forward.
That slow blink thing that they do, which seems somebody once explained that's a cat smiling, like that very slow. Even Thatcher will do that to me. He'll send me a signal across the room with like a slow blink, which kind of, I don't know. To me, it sort of indicates I'm happy. It's good. You're at a good safe distance, but I'm very happy right now.
Yeah, and a lot of people will actually talk about doing that ourselves towards cats, where we do a nice slow blink. It's a little bit calming in them.
They like
as
that.
Well.
Yeah. Did they read? I mean, aside from us just being kind of gentle with them, but did they read our signals? Like, are there things that we can do around cats that they like? Like.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think they read our signals to some extent. It's just how it's interpreted may not be how we intend it.
Yeah.
And I think that things like direct eye contact, putting our face in their face and touching them, right? Like if you just watch how cats that like each other interact. And so think about that. Or like, again, petting just with a couple of fingers, cheek, neck, head, right? Not down the whole back. Now, there are some cats that do enjoy that, but I wouldn't assume that every cat enjoys that. And I think there are cats like Seymour who feel very trusting of you and they want your face in their face. But a cat you don't know, if we lean right in and make that direct eye contact and that close physical kind of socially invasive interaction, just like a person, if you don't know them, you wouldn't go put my face in your face.
It's true, yeah.
Right? But we do that to cats we don't know, like, hey, and dogs all the time. Like, hey, buddy.
Yeah.
Look how friendly I am. And they're like, whoa, wait a minute. It's a little offensive.
It is. You mentioned in your book that cats sleep almost 40% of the day, which to me even seems like a low number. But but what is the deal with their sleeping? I mean, just physiologically, like why do they have to sleep so much?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I think it might be explained if you look at when they hunt, right? They need to expend a lot of energy. Whereas in a household, if they're not hunting, they don't need that much energy. But it also kind of speaks to sometimes they don't have much else to do. It doesn't behoove them to move all the time. But I think if they are surviving on natural prey, then they expend a lot of energy on that. They also, I think, if they're not living inside a home, like if you watch feral cats, that 40% probably comes from them because they are spending, there's just more to do. There's more to do outside. And so it's our job then with these indoor kitties to make our homes as conducive to their natural needs and preferences as possible. So kind of my phrase I use when we talk about providing for that is hunting, chewing, scratching, and viewing. So hunt, we got to play with them. Those toys, something that mimics a mouse or something, or a bird moving around, and give them opportunity to play. Scratching, so cats have to scratch. It's an absolute need for them. If they don't scratch, they aren't able to shed the outer layers of their nails. So we need to find a place that's within their core area, that is the texture that they like, meaning they want to rip it and make it leave a big mess. And they want it to be at the right height so they can fully stretch to do that, or the right length if they are a horizontal scratcher. And then chewing, they like to chew. I mean, cats will chew on grass, they'll chew on plants. You want to make sure your plants are not poisonous and be prepared that the ones that are not, the ones you have out may get holes in them. So if you want to provide them with cat grasses or catnip or other things to actually chew on, it is actually something they normally do. And then with viewing, cats really like to have high vantage points on the periphery of rooms. So I know a lot of us don't like to have big, ugly cat trees in our home, but there's creative, very aesthetically pleasing shelving that you can put on the side walls of your room. You can have really nice, they make really beautiful cat furniture, or you can make it yourself. I encourage you to look up the cat library if you haven't heard of that before.
No,
and
what
there's
is
actually
that?
a picture of it in our book.
Oh, I love that thing.
Book.
Yeah, it's like bookcases.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was actually one of my patients. My client had her handyman make that for her because I showed her a picture of something. There was this CBS Sunday morning special on these architects that were kind of bored and who also loved cats. And they said, let's just build cool cat furniture. So they created what was called the cat library, which if you look at the original ones, these beautiful bookshelves that when you look straight on, just look like a regular bookshelf. But when you look from the side, there's a staircase. And so cats have these little cubbies. So some of the cubbies hold books. Some have a little cat mat for resting, and they can go all the way up and across and over a door. And it's wonderful because they get all these options for hiding, all these options for perching. It's on the periphery of a room that can be super high up. And so that viewing need is greatly
My cats would love
fulfilled.
that. Yeah, we just got a kind of cat tree thing, and they haven't really taken to it yet, but we're trying. But I know what you that, and I had an invention that I still want to do, where I always thought we should make litter boxes that are designed after very famous historical landmarks. So I want to do like a Taj Mahal litter box and Eiffel Tower, just to make, because litter boxes are really ugly usually, and like, why hasn't anybody thought to make a nice, attractive litter box?
As long as it's really big and really easy to get into. I don't care what it looks like.
Yeah, okay. So a Grand Central Station litter box. So cats, they seem to be very mercurial. Like, one day your cat will be just like, going whoa, and like running up down the floor, and they do that kind of like crazy meow, and they go like, and they're like, you're crazy, what are you doing? And they're just running around. And then other times they just come to you and they're like massively purring, and they just want to be loved. And it just seems like their switch flicks in their brain where they're just like, I'm incredible. We always say like, he's in an incredibly lovey mood right now, or he's in a crazy mood. We just like talk about, humans aren't quite as, not some are, but most humans are able to regulate it somewhat. So I guess it's more of like, what's going on?
I don't know. I have a 4 and a 6-year-old girl right now.
Right. Maybe cats just never get beyond 4 and 6.
Yes.
That's the thing.
The essential, yeah.
They're basically just toddlers. All right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I would say that's completely normal. Again, and they're hunters. And if they're not outside hunting, they've got these bursts of energy and they need to do something. So they get their zoomies or they get their crazy, running around out of their system, and then that need's met. And now it's time for some loving and some affection. So I feel like, again, just like a 4-year-old or 6-year-old.
Yeah. Just think if your cat is 4. The other day my vet said, your cat's about 45 right now. And that freaked me out. I was like, my cat's like, Sumer's like a middle-aged man, but really he just acts like a 3-year-old. All day. So, but
I believe it.
You mentioned hunting. And I think one of the things that people always joke about with cats is that they do that thing when they hunt, where they kind of bring you their mouths. They're like, look at me, do, 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 do. And they trot up and they've got this mouse and they kind of drop it at your feet, and oftentimes it's still alive. And you're like, ah! What is that all about? Are they kind of like proud to show you their hunt? Or like, what do you think's going on there?
Sure. And it's so common. And I have definitely woken up with a present in front of my bedroom door.
Always.
Like, I'm glad you caught it at least, because I've had other.
That's your job.
They just want to play with it. They don't want to kill it.
They don't really want to kill it.
Put it down and let it run again so they can chase it and grab it and maim it. And it's really awful.
No, sometimes I just put the poor mouse out of its misery because it's horrible to watch.
I know. But I'd say, we're part of their family, right? We are in their social group. And so, just like a mother cat brings back prey in various forms of between being alive and dead, to show kittens. That's how kittens learn, by watching their moms. First, they catch them and bring them to them and show them how to kill them and then how to eat them. And then eventually they bring them to them live and give them the chance to do that. So it's not unusual for a cat to want to bring something they've caught back to their family. And I feel like we are their family, so it doesn't seem surprising that they're going to bring us their catch, or their prize.
I guess so. Well, you say that we're part of their social group, and I often wonder how they perceive us. Do they see us as like just enormous cats, or do you think that they make a distinction?
I think most cats can make the distinction. Where the exception or confusion may occur is maybe for a bottle-raised cats. So kittens that are taken away from mom, or a mom passes away, or for some reason can't nurse them, and they are removed from other cats at a very young age, say 2 weeks of age. Then, so really when their eyes first open and when they can first hear, it's a human. And so they don't imprint on us like, say, some birds might imprint on the first thing they see. So it's not like that, but it's still like,
what does that mean?
Early imprint. So imprinting is something that, like a precocial bird. So after they hatch from the egg, the first thing they see that moves, they follow, and they follow for the rest of their lives. The imprint says, I must follow, because these are birds that they can't stick around the nest, or they may be eaten by predators. So they need to be born and follow their mom. But so Conrad Lorenz did a lot of great studies with this, where he had geese imprint on him, and then for life, they'd follow him. He'd go to the lake where they were released, and they would call flock to him. He'd swim in the water and they'd swim behind him, like for years later. So it's imprinting. So it's like that immediate, this is not like the Twilight series novels, but it's this immediate, like, oh, I see something visual moving and I will follow it. And it's forever. It's immediate. Whereas with dogs and cats, it's more this socialization window where we can insert ourselves in it and teach them that we're safe. but really they don't necessarily see us as their same species. It's more of a social group member or something safe.
Okay.
Because mom and litter mates are really they kind of associate as self. But I think, again, if we are bottle raising kittens without other cats around, then sometimes you can see those lines blurred a little bit. Where I don't know that they think we're cats. I think they more think they're little people.
It's true.
Right? Because they see other cats like, what is that? I'm not one of those.
Right. It's true. I think they think, yeah, they're more like us. That's so funny. Yeah, except when I wear my Chewbacca costume during Halloween, sometimes the cats are a little bit confused. Like, what is that?
What?
Is that me? So it seems like cats have had like a renaissance, and cats have kind of gone in and out of fashion over history. You know, there were horrible times for cats, like during like, I've heard, you know, people used to associate cats with the plague. So many cats were killed during the plague, and they've had, some people think they were part of witchcraft. And of course, there's always the black cat thing. And But this is a good time for cats, at least seems to be in the popular culture. And I think they're probably more popular than they've ever been. Why? Why are cats so freaking popular? I mean, I know what I think because, and I don't even know. Sometimes I'll be like, why do I like this little thing so much? Like, what is it about a cat that people just can't get enough watching videos of them and having? What is it? Have you ever thought about it? I can't figure it out.
I thought I'd given it much thought, but I mean, it makes sense. I mean, they're adorable, they're attractive, they're fuzzy, they're small, right? They're manageable,
big eyes.
And
yeah, they're manageable. I think they're weird. I think people kind of like the weirdness of cats.
Yes, right. We tend to forgive cats for so much more than we do dogs. Like dogs, we just think you're little humans and you should obey me, and there's all these expectations. Whereas with cats, we're like, he's the cat, you know, it's what they do.
Yeah, right. So they're just quirky and strange. That's part of
we're more accepting, and entertained, I would say, by just being more of a spectator. I feel like people don't see their dogs where they're just going to be a spectator in their lives. Sometimes we feel like I'm just going to kind of watch this cat and just be highly entertained, because I think most cats are much better self-entertainers than a lot of our dogs. Although it sounds like Seymour definitely has a need to be entertained. Some of our highly social cats.
He's like, he's completely, so needy. Yeah. It's like, if you don't pay attention to him, he's like, meow, meow, meow. He just wants us to constantly be around him and touch him and play with him. Last question. What was, I mean, just in your practice, you've met so many, you've learned so much about cats. What was one of the most interesting things you ever learned about cats that you just had no idea was true? And then you were like, whoa, really?
To be honest, it's the level and extent of bonding that I've seen with cats. So like, for example, a cat, bonding to a child in the family. Mm-hmm. I mean, and it goes beyond what you would think, like a kid. Now, most cats are kind of like my own cat, annoyed with my kids that are constantly, oh, let me dress you up. Let me carry you around. Oh, I'm going to lock you in the bathroom with me when no one's looking so that you have to love me.
Yeah.
But this was a family and a cat where, I mean, this cat loved this child. It's a 6-year-old girl. Everywhere she went, the cat was with her. She could literally just carry him around like a little teddy bear. The cat wanted to be with her all the time. And when the girl was gone, the cat showed separation anxiety and struggles. And it was just, I mean, it was sad that the cat had to struggle when the child wasn't around, but the extent of that bond was so incredible. I mean, I'd never seen anything like it. I mean, yes, I've seen cats bonded to their people, but this was incredible, and particularly for a small child. That was probably one of the coolest things.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
I don't know if that's the answer to your question.
No, I love that. It's beautiful.
It was a really beautiful relationship and unusual.
What do you think about giving cats CBD? Are you even allowed to talk about that? I know that there's some laws around CBD.
Yeah, I mean, I think the jury's still out. So really the evidence we have in animals, companion animals, there is an epilepsy paper and an arthritis paper in dogs,
right?
Showing some efficacy. There is also some potential for liver toxicity. And cats, even more so than dogs, have funny livers. So there's a lot of things that they can't have that dogs might be able to have, or we might be able to have.
Right,
and so
CBD,
we have not done enough research on the safety in cats. So I can't yet recommend it as a veterinarian. Now, certainly it's widely available. You can get it almost anywhere.
You can get it at like everywhere. So it doesn't seem to be regulated.
And it's changing. The federal government is starting to change the status, but for the longest time it was Schedule 1. It's illegal. Right. We cannot recommend it. Even if you can buy it, we can't recommend it. And so I think I know there are, like at University of Pennsylvania, and some of my other colleagues are doing some research on it. But it's not just like, hey, does it work? But hey, what does it do to your body? How do you tolerate it? What does your blood work look like after you've been on it for a few days, a few weeks? I have a feeling we're probably going to see benefits there. I just can't speak to its safety, particularly in cats, because they've got livers that do funny things. Like if you give a cat Tylenol, it's deadly to them. Like there's just certain drugs they cannot metabolize.
What about like SSRIs, like Prozac for cats, or SSRIs that are...
SSRIs, oh yeah.
Are they, do they work?
Actually, I mean, we've prescribed them in cats. We always want to check blood work to make sure their livers are healthy and kidneys are healthy, but they're actually pretty darn safe. And we've got a number of published studies with particularly Prozac or fluoxetine.
Maybe
Buspirone, another one that we've used a lot. So Buspirone's one we'll use a lot for those scaredy cats. So it's kind of a bravery medication for them.
I've mentioned it to my vet with Thatcher, and they always say, meh. Then they're like, why don't you just try, they recommend the pheromones in the house.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, I'm a big fan of Feliway as well. But some of these cats, if it goes a little deeper than that, do benefit from medication. Right. So you have your vet give me a call.
I'll have your vet. Yeah. Maybe Thatch could be on just a very low dose. I mean, Lord knows I am. We all need a little help. Well, Dr. Herron, thank you so much for your time. It's a great book. It's called Decoding Your Cat from the American College of Veterinary Behaviorists, and I highly recommend it. And it's for cat and dog lovers alike. And you have a Decoding Your Dog book as well.
We do. Yep. Yeah. Decoding Your Dog came out in 2015, but still relevant. It's all based on science. All of it still applies. Real. So they're a great pair.
It's a great read. All right. Well, thank you, and have a great rest of your day. And take that poor doggy there seems to want your attention very badly.
Will do. Will do. Thank you.
Take care. Bye. Well, I hope you enjoyed this very meowy episode of Right About Now. I wanted to take this time to thank you, my dear listeners, for supporting the show. If you liked what you heard today or in the past, you can do me a huge Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, Festivus favor, and that is write a review and give me a rating. And who knows, I might even thank you in my next episode. In fact, I wanted to thank VG 100%, who wrote, "Great interviewer, great guests, 5 stars." And to show my appreciation for one of my lucky listeners, I would like to send you a free copy of Decoding Your Cat, the book that we were just talking about. All you have to do is write a review on iTunes or Stitcher or Spotify or wherever you may listen to podcasts. Send me a screenshot on my Facebook, which is Right About Now Podcast, or Instagram, which is Right About Now Pod. I'll get your address, and then you get yourself a free book. All right, well, I'll see you all next week. And until that time comes, this is John Small reminding you to do the right thing.